throw a total tantrum in broad daylight in the middle of the quad. But it's unfair to be a critic alone and not to propose an alternative. So at this point, I will move to discussing the components of a grading scale and propose my own version. To do so, I will walk us through the various letter grade options from F through A. Let me begin my comments on the letter grade F by saying that I have no problem with having F in a grading scale. In general, we could all stand to learn a bit more about what the assessment literature refers to as successful failure. I believe it's important for us to grapple with the fact that we occasionally may fail. But the range of failure is what makes me want to scream. Seriously? We need a 64-point spread of options for failing people? Really? All the other letter categories added together equal only about half of this category numerically. So if you truly catastrophically fail, the chore of climbing out of that hole will require an effort of epic proportions. Let's get the letter grade F comparably sized with the rest of the scale. So what of the rest of the scale? Well, let's consider D. We tend to accept the D portion of our grading scheme without questions, but what earthly purpose does D serve? It is like the letter grade version of purgatory. D is simply not good enough. No matter that it is above failing, D should be stricken from the scale because, let's face it, D is just F in disguise. And to add insult to injury, we have 3 levels of D. Are you kidding me? I should be able to distinguish between a high-quality D and a low-quality D? Is that what this plus-minus business is suggesting? To be concise, the D range is deranged. We begin to see the light as we turn to our discussion. When you earn a C, you have done adequate work. It's good enough for major credit. So what's my problem with C, you may ask? I don't have a problem with C. Unless, and this is a pretty big unless, you call C average. Average? Seriously? C is average? If this is the average, an awful lot of people have to be in D and F. Because that's what an average does. It brings things back to the middle. If C is kind of in the middle, then there must be a lot of people hanging around that aren't doing very well. But fall below a C average, a 2.0, and you will find yourself on academic guidance or worse. So where are all those folks if C is average? I believe the true average grade is B. The B range of grades is the anchoring point for setting goals for student learning. A C range student should have learned what they need to know, but B range students are not just minimally getting by, they are showing signs of engaging the content in meaningful ways. B students get it. So finally, I come to A. When I teach, and many of my colleagues with me, I am envisioning an A for every student in my class. This is my goal, to make mastery possible, to give my students the tools for high levels of success. This is not a shared vision across the broader academic community. And here, Houghton is on a very favorable par, which I will describe in a moment. But there are 2 counter views to my make an A accessible to all people viewpoint, which particularly make me want to throw a full-out tantrum in the middle of the quad. The first of these is expressed by some academics I've met in this manner. And I must say I've only met one person at Houghton this way, but particularly when I was in other institutions of learning. Prepare yourself for a B at best because I don't give A's in this class. Really. what I want to say to people like this is, first of all, you already know before the class starts that you aren't going to have A students. That's interesting to me. Really. I want to say to such people, first of all, I don't give A's either. My students earn them. And then, secondly, I sort of want to say, though maybe not out loud, I'm sorry to hear that your students have difficulty earning an A in your class, but don't worry. With some effort and a bit more education, you too can learn to teach your students effectively enough that they can earn A's. I mean, seriously, folks. Yes, challenge your students to high levels of learning, but make the A accessible to everyone. Make it achievable. Make it so, because your content is worth knowing and knowing well. The second counter view is more pervasive, and it worries me more, actually. It's the idea that we shouldn't allow too many A's, because this will lead to grade inflation, as we call it. The only truly good A is a rare A. This is what I like to call the rare gem theory of A's. The fewer there are, the more valuable they are. But not all things of great value turn out to be rare. Take, for instance, oxygen, or God's grace, both of which are valuable even in their abundance. Why then are we not having discussions about grace inflation, for instance? Abundant A's are no problem when we can show that they are earned. And I'm pleased to say that in a recent survey of 68 faculty members here at Houghton, 60 respondents agreed with this point of view. One last comment about A before I reveal my proposed grading scale, which I know you're all dying to see. The A range deserves a plus, just like all the other letter grades. I mean, come on. So, if I were designing the grading system, and you may be thanking yourself for not, it would look like this. Every range, A, B, and C, has actually, and all the plus and minus ranges are the same interval numerically. And I'm stopping at C for the very reason I mentioned. I don't see the use in D. And I'm also saying that if you do work that's worth handing in, I can't imagine that it would be worth less than a 65. So that's the bottom of my scale. If you did some work that was like worth a 10, I would say it's not worth handing in. So I would say it's not done yet, you're still responsible. Further, I would eliminate all curving of grades and using points as a bonus or a reward. Points should be earned by students, not handed out by teachers, and they should only be earned for increased mastery of the course content. I would also eliminate the practice of fixing a failing grade in one unit of a course by balancing it with a higher grade in another unit. Every unit should be worth knowing at a competent level, or why teach it? And I facetiously was thinking, what if God said, oh, hey, guess what? You got a 7 on the 10 Commandments. That's because you did such a great job of observing the Sabbath that it balanced out the problems that you had with not murdering. The whole of what God teaches us is important. The whole of what we teach as teachers should be important as well. We need more dialogue around the issue of grading. My faculty colleagues here at Houghton agree. In the survey mentioned earlier, Houghton faculty clearly are ready to consider a change, or at least to have a discussion about it. At least half of them responded that they are not even using the college scale right now. Very few of my Houghton colleagues are concerned about grade inflation, and by very few I mean only 6 out of 68 mentioned a concern about grade inflation. And let's face it anyway, Asking whether grades are inflated is simply the wrong question. The question we need to be asking ourselves every day is, are my students learning?
Thank you very much, and we'll hear now some responses from our 4 faculty panelists. We have Dr. Jim Zoller, Professor Jim Zoller of the Writing and English Department, Professor Peter Meilander from the History and Political Science Department, Matt Pelletier from the Biology Department, and Professor Kathy Freytag from the Department of Education. And I don't know who's going to go first, so we'll let them fight it out. And, or just, no, we don't want Professor Finney's a Mennonite, so we don't fight. Not this one. We'll go first.
No bullet points, no bullet points. If you have questions later, do not shoot me an email, send me an
If you can't hear me, somebody in the back let me know. My voice has been in pretty bad shape all week. Try to speak up and out. I teach writing primarily. My grading sensibilities are shaped by what I do as a writing teacher. And I think probably the grading in writing is a bit different from most many other disciplines. So what I have to say should be understood as a writing issue and not as normative in some way, although others can agree to disagree. I will start by responding to Dr. Finney and saying that I agree with virtually everything that she said. I think there are some issues that I might shape a little differently, or statements I might shape a little differently, but essentially I think I agree with her sentiments. The grading of writing